everybody, Michelle here.
Hello, Daniel. OG Rose.
Just doing our nightly chats.
Kids are asleep.
We think.
Yeah, we think. I got a short piece here, Reality, Handicaps, Preventative Measures, based on a longer paper called Incentives to Problem Solve, which is really discussing the problem where efforts to solve problems have an advantage over efforts to prevent problems. One, because a problem that is prevented and never manifests, you can never know for sure that you prevented it, that it wouldn't have vanished on its own. Mm-hmm. Two, you don't get the acknowledgement from other people because you made it go away. They can't see you solving the problem. And three, it's much more existentially destabilizing, precisely because when you make something vanish, you never see it vanish, you never see it manifest, so there's always a level of uncertainty that you did anything worthwhile. So there's a lot of incentive just by the structure of reality itself for us to be problem solvers versus problem preventers. But of course, if we're problem solvers, that means there has to be a problem for us to solve.
Or problems all the time, constantly.
Yeah, that's right. So then we have like an incentive. And then, so then to be like heroes, we actually have an incentive to make problems or to have problems or to live in a state of constant problems. I mean, you see it in fact. I mean, all of the praise goes to people who are solving problems.
Yeah, but I think this happens across the board. You know, you can see it, in interpersonal relationship and interpersonal dynamics, and also in on the larger scale. You know, it's interesting too because the preventative things are also a lot of times incremental, like they are little at a time.
Right.
It's a lot more of a long term. I guess what I'm going to say is like
daily commitment.
Yeah, like
process.
It's baby steps, right? It's like baby steps. Whereas I think solution, the other thing too, is it just like looks more obvious. You know, it's all at once.
Right.
It's all at once, so you can see visually and just envisioning it as this larger solution comes all at once.
It's very visual.
Yeah, it's very visual. It's very, I think there's a lot more. It's just more evident. You know, in the paper, the longer paper, Incentives to Problem Solving, I think it is just like you said, talk about in the paper. There's so much more incentive, just more reward for woohoo. This is the solution to the problem. Whereas the baby steps and the work, it's so much more behind the scenes to do preventative work.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a politician, for example, and you've worked quietly for many years to boost up American cybersecurity, kind of in a way that has never been reported on, that no one's ever seen anything, well, then you're probably not going to get much credit. But if tomorrow the Russians break into the Pentagon and there's a massive data breach, which there seems to have been last March, and then you're the politician who comes out with the bill that's going to change cybersecurity, everyone's going to applaud you, it's going to be on the floor, there's going to be a large talk, and that's the person that could become the face of fighting, of boosting American cybersecurity, as opposed to the individual that quietly for many years was trying to do something. And of course, this is a problem because then this suggests the incentives in politics is to be problem solvers versus 100%. Problem preventers, so that you get coverage. Or in the same way that if you do the gradual work of being healthy, of eating well and exercising, well, then you never need, say, the doctor or the medicine or the shot or whatever, the surgery that's going to solve your lack of health. Which then you could always wonder, if you exercise every day and maybe make sacrifices, you can always wonder, well, would I have actually gotten a heart attack if I didn't exercise and take all the time to do this work? Maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe it's a big waste of time. You can always wonder that. And also too, when someone gets, like, let's say they get some sort of medical procedure that 100% the next day they say feel better, well, then there's no doubt that, say, the medicine made a difference, that it made them feel better. Where the daily exercise, you kind of know intellectually that it's good for you, but you never see the results. It's not very vivid. It's not very visual, so you can always wonder if it made a difference. Yeah,
that's interesting. I was thinking about that idea. I was thinking a lot about like the health analogies, because it's so hard to give the credit, to, eating properly or whatever. Like you said, it's sort of like, well, you can sort of assent to the fact that would make a difference health-wise, but it's hard to say exactly how that, and then again, if it prevents things, it's almost like the doorknob's not broken, right?
Oh, yeah,
like
Heidegger,
it's just the Heidegger analogy, what he talks about. So basically, just that idea that it's everything's working out well. You almost forget, you underestimate the value, right, of these small tiny steps that are preventative, like say not eating, I don't know, fried Oreos for every meal or something
sure.
like that.
Well, and then also what happens is the fact that there is not a problem becomes evidence that there hasn't been a real test. And so if you're like, you see that in relationships, right? Like if two people get along, then there's almost a suspicion that they're not actually ever going deep, or they're not ever, when maybe they've just done the work to make sure they don't have drama. But people who are like fighting and like, then they're like, well, we're working it out, we're talking it through.
This is a real relationship.
Yeah, right. So those are problem solvers as opposed.
It's like problems indicate to people like a salute, like
depth.
It's like problems indicate that things are going well, which is so ironic.
Because it's real. I think it's something where they associate it with reality.
Well, they're like, well, there's problems, so we can fix them. So now we know that we fixed something, so it makes them
so
think,
it must be good. If something's been fixed, then we've done something good.
But instead of just appreciating when something's great, if you maintain that greatness, I think we should shift from skepticism to appreciation.
Well, this gets into a few things. You could even get into, like, Bertrand Russell talks about the problem of leisure, where if you have a society like the biggest one of the biggest questions for society is, what do you do with leisure? How do you use leisure productively? How do you use it and it not become boredom? And there's actually this issue where perhaps the reason people are always getting into drama and problems to solve is because they don't know what to do with their leisure that feels real and productive and constructive. So then they want something to quote unquote happen, and they're also suspicious of leisure, or they're suspicious of having nothing going on.
But they want it.
But they want it.
Like
it's very strange.
Yeah, it's very strange.
They want it. But then they're suspicious when it happens because it doesn't feel like there's anything real happening. But then but their standard of the real becomes drama or becomes problems, because that feels like depth as opposed to, say, a philosophical reflection that really goes into depth, or art or aesthetics or things like that.
Right. And I think also the more that we've outsourced our labor life, just the things that in life would cause you to do work, right? And things breaking and fixing. I feel like the more that's been outsourced, we now still have that desire in us to repair, but we put that into our relationships now.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense? So,
yeah, there's
not to like make idolize any type of, but I just think about the farmer. The farmer is very acquainted with the fence breaking, the cow, breaking the fence, and not knowing exactly when the rain's coming, and having to improvise on how to fix that. There's a lot of just like things that are just, the elements are going to break and you're going to have to fix. Just like, also
so there's an innate orientation toward fixing.
I think so.
In advanced society, we're not having to use as much, so then it gets put on people or relationships.
And we also think we almost think that it's wrong for that in the quotidian, like the daily, but it's very right for us to do that on a relational, societal, governmental level. Like, if you think about it from the daily, it's like, okay, it's kind of like, quote unquote, a problem that you always have to make another meal and you have to do the dishes again.
Sure.
These are kind of, in a way, broken things that have to be fixed. They're not technically broken, but you get the idea.
Right.
They have to be fixed over and over again. And I think maybe we just like, that feels like a problem, almost like it shouldn't be that way. But if we really embrace that, I think we could hopefully shift that desire to be incentivized for our problem solving to just being, I don't know, rewarded in just doing your tasks that you need to do daily.
There certainly seems to be something innate in us that wants to be solving problems, and we're kind of, so then as society,
what arena are we doing that in?
And as society becomes more advanced, as you more money, you get society is more wealthy, then we still have that instinct to solve problems. And since we don't have houses to build or animals to go hunt, we then direct it on one another. I think that's certainly a good insight and probably true.
Right.
And then, of course, the problem is when you prevent a problem, you don't directly experience it in life, and so it's more mental. When you prevent a problem, you just have to know that you prevented a problem. And of course, we don't do very well we don't do very well with ideas. There's that other paper, ideas are not experiences. And we are not motivated by ideas like we are experiences. Our experiences are always more emotional, more tangible. And so to be motivated by ideas is much more difficult than experiences.
Well, yeah, I mean, also with the ideas thing, you know, there's this idea of like, well, should we just all go back to, you know, when we all had to be agrarians so that we really get it, and, you know, we don't make our problem solving like, you know, equal drama in our lives, or like, if you have ideas, you can use that idea to kind of orient you in your new situation, if that makes sense. So you kind of say, wow, we have, you know, this desire to fix the broken things.
Right.
So instead of intentionally like almost creating problems to be the problem solver, realize that there is just something that is going to be Sisyphean, you know, like this kind of constant work that you have to do that will be your broken fixing. Right. You know, you're broken to fix, broken to fixed. Right. And embrace that, and don't see, like, I think there's something not heroic about that, doing it just in the daily activities. But if you embrace it as like the oh wow, I'm actually made to do this, it might be kind of like, it just doesn't get the praise, I don't think. You know?
all
and that's why maybe people want it, like, we kind of just are like, well, that's boring, or I don't know, overlooked. So I'd rather do it in this heroic way, even though I'm gonna have to make a problem to be the solution, to be the hero.
All existential, social, neurosis motivations are in favor of problem solving as opposed to problem prevention. You existentially prefer problem solving because it's more certain you did something. You socially prefer problem solving because people see it, and it's more linear, it's more direct. And you psychologically prefer problem solving because it feels like you're doing something with your life. And so this alone, I think this suggests why politics is dysfunctional, why so many relationships are in trouble, why socially there is so much drama. Is because it is one of the great tricks and challenges in life is learning how to live equally motivated by ideas as 100%. Experiences, because ideas are the tools by which you figure out how to live the good life. But if you're living the quote unquote, you know, that Socrates idea, Plato philosophers, that idea of the good life, then you are not experiencing the bad life. And you have to just simply know that what you're doing is right, even if you feel like you're not solving problems, because you're not going to be getting the social acknowledgement. You know, if you're preventing problems, because you're not creating problems to solve, so you're not going to get the social acknowledgement. So it's existentially destabilizing and tempting to become a problem solver versus a problem preventer. And if you just don't, in your only option is to simply know that problem, to cling to the idea that problem preventing is better than problem solving. And we as human beings are not very good at living according to ideas as opposed to experiences. But this has been OG Rose.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
And please, for more, check out ogrose.com. And thank you for your time.